Okay. How are we doing, everybody? We are here today with Charles Biami. Charles from Driven Dental. This is an exciting webinar. I've been looking forward to giving this one and looking forward to taking this message and bringing it to you. How are we doing today, Charles?
Doing really good. Excited to be here. Anxious to have this conversation. You and I have been talking for a while now about just digging into how do we get more airway patients. So I'm excited to talk about this.
So some of you may recognize Charles. Charles was at our last meeting in Orlando for our IAOS members that are watching this. And Charles works with a company called Driven Dental. Charles, give us a bit of your background and a bit about Driven Dental, and then take us through how you got into also my favorite field, the world of sleep and airway.
For sure. So I'll try to give the short version of the story. So I am a co-owner of Driven Dental Implant Marketing, and that company has been around for since 2018. Previous to that, I have always worked in the dental field as a freelance marketer and kind of helped dental practices attract patients. My focus has been helping dental practices attract high value patients, those patients that are coming in looking for significant investment in their smile and their health. And they're a little bit different than your regular, just everyday patient. They have, different concerns, different decision criteria, different budgets, different timelines. And so we've got to talk to them a little bit different. We've got to market to them a little bit different. And Driven has made its name and has had great success, starting off first with dental implants as that high value patient segment. Obviously, it can be as much as $5,000 to replace a single tooth, all the way up to $50,000 if you're talking about full arches. So that's a big deal for patients. And there's a lot of moving parts that need to be in place to be successful with that campaign. We've done that. And over the last few years, we've helped hundreds of doctors attract and convert high value implant patients. And we learned a ton from that. In fact, there's a lot of similarities between that and airway. One, the patients are considering, this really complex treatment that, it's not something that people look for often. So they need a lot of education in order to make a decision. Two, the decision timeline is a little bit longer. And so we need to have systems in place so that our team can actually address that. And three, there's a lot of coordination that has to go on. With implants, it's working with specialists or maybe figuring out how we're going to do all our diagnostics and all that kind of stuff. With airway, it's coordinating with the medical partners and making sure we get the patients where they need to go so they ultimately can end up with our treatment plans and saying yes. So there's a lot of similarities in that this is a complex patient journey, and we're able to take what we learned with implants and now really focus on airway, and we're starting to see a lot of success with that. So this is a new thing for us. I'm excited to introduce your group to what we're doing with that.
We're excited for it too. And listen, obviously, you and I have had a bunch of conversations specifically on the topic. I love what you guys have done in the implant world. And listen, I love that you've taken it and now brought it to airway. Tell me about some of the challenges that you're facing, or not just you, but anybody who wants to get into airway marketing. Tell me about some of the challenges that that person may face getting into marketing to this different type of dynamic, which you just alluded to, needs other professionals involved.
Yeah, so for sure. I mean, just airway is its own animal. And I think if you are going to try to incorporate this into your service mix, you really need to kind of pull out this and look at it almost like a separate business track for your practice and make sure that all the systems are in place that can get a patient from that initial inquiry all the way to case accepted and case delivered, and map that out. And it's not just about you, the doctor, having the clinical skill and having the right solution in place. You also need to make sure your team members are on board and they know what their role is and how to make sure they get the patient from the start to the finish. So thinking about it in terms of just a collection of systems that we need to really optimize in our practice, I think that's one first way. And so to start this whole thing, we got to get the patient first. What most practices end up doing is they work with their existing patient base, and that's the right way to start. You've already got relationships with these patients. They know you, they like you, they trust you, and you know enough about them where you can open a conversation to start talking about the importance of airway. That can work. It can be inconsistent sometimes because those patients, even though they might be having the symptoms in their chair and you're identifying this stuff, it doesn't mean it's a problem for them. And so the urgency sometimes might be missing. And so, it can be tough to kind of try to convert patients in the chair if it's really not something that seems to be a impact in their life. So that's a challenge with just getting patients from our own patient base. Then what most practices do is they work with medical professionals in their area. One, you've got to go through the effort to build these relationships in your community. Two, then it's still on them to consistently send you referrals, and you're at their mercy whether or not they do that. So if you want to consistently grow your airway practice, you can't necessarily rely on your medical partners because that's unpredictable. So you need another way, which is go direct to the marketplace. And that's where Driven can help. It's where we can actually help set up specific campaigns to go out to these patients. But there's a very specific way that we need to talk to them, because the challenge here is most of the patients who really need this don't understand that they have a diagnosable disease, and they're not actively searching for our dental solution to their airway problem. So we've got to start at a different place. And that's where the real challenge is how do we educate the patients, nurture them until they're ready, and do that efficiently so we don't spend so much of our time talking to patients who really aren't ready for our chair time right now.
Love everything you just said. So, it's pretty amazing, by the way, that you can come into a field and, hey, let's identify the issues here. I joke about this and it's kind of sad, but if you go to a sleep course, here's what marketing typically consists of: do your own patient base and go to doctors and tell them you're the guy. Hey, listen, I'm the guy who does sleep appliances. Send your patients to me, and I'm going to take great care of them. Meanwhile, you're probably late to the party because 100 people have done that, and it's such a small base of people anyways. That is the typical marketing plan that you hear from 99% of the sleep courses. So coming at it, identifying, hey, here's a problem. We got a problem here. Even if your patient base was easy, which it's not, everyone's coming to you as a dentist and looking for problems or solutions to their teeth issues and don't really come to you for airway. So you're bringing up something that they don't know about, don't think about, and it's probably better off coming from their medical doctor. But even if you were the greatest salesperson on the planet, your patient base is that big. You have a limited amount. If you were the greatest, you could get this whole patient base identified, tested, and treated in 6 months. And then what, right? And hence the idea of, hey, let's go out and start building up another patient base from outside sources. And that's what I love about what you guys are doing. Let's talk about this a bit. Okay, so we want to look and we want to start bringing leads into the picture, right? What are the first steps that you're finding? What are the ways that you're finding of bringing leads in, and not just leads, but good leads?
Right. Well, you mentioned something. We can talk all day and educate all day with our patients, but if that urgency isn't there, if they're not ready right now, if it's not a problem that is impactful enough for them to take action, then they're just not going to convert. What we do with implant marketing and what we do with airway marketing is we target patients that are actively searching for a solution to the problem. It means that they are problem aware, that they know that they have an issue and they are motivated to solve it. And in airway, you probably have had, conversations with patients where you can identify that that urgency is in place. They can't sleep at night and they're struggling with daytime fatigue, and that's affecting their job, their relationships, their just their general well-being, and so they need to solve this problem fast. Maybe there is a situation where they did have a conversation with their doctor and they understand that the airway issue is connected to a life-threatening systemic health issue that they need to solve right now. If they don't get this airway under control, they're putting their life at risk. Then there's other symptoms. There's the mom who may have a child who's suffering from symptoms that are like ADHD, and they're having behavioral problems, and the child is irritable, and there's all these different things going on, and the parent isn't quite sure what they need to do, but something has to happen. They're desperately searching for answers. And that's where we got to get in front of them, is not with, hey, immediately started talking about this oral appliance or whatever our airway solution is. They're not ready for that yet. We've got to start with where the conversation is right now in their head, and that's symptom focused. They're acutely aware of the symptoms that they're experiencing, and that's where they're searching for. And so your marketing campaign has to speak to those symptoms and help them understand that those symptoms are related to the root cause of airway. If they don't make that connection, if they don't connect the dots that it's an airway issue and that the dentist is the person they should be talking to, then we don't have a place to start with the conversation. So we've got to take a step back and start where the patients are in order to really create what are called quality leads. And if you're experiencing conversations that you feel are not quality, these are patients that don't seem serious, they don't have the right expectations, they're just not ready to move forward, it's probably because we're jumping the gun and we're talking about our solution a little bit too early. The patients aren't solution aware yet. They're still trying to figure out what the problem is.
So, all of my members are watching this now and saying, hey, listen, it's pretty clear Avi's been priming Charles to tell him to say this. Hey, guys, this is not the case. I say, there's two words you're not allowed to say in any of at least your first two or three interactions with the patient. And it's those two words are oral appliance. It's so common for dentists to jump right into it. Hey, listen, here's your oral appliance. It's the answer to your problems. Well, what problem? I don't know. I don't have a problem. What are you talking about? It's like, yeah, if we look at a patient and we say, hey, you have a broken tooth, and this broken tooth needs to have this porcelain crown on it in order to fix it. Like, all right, my problem is a broken tooth. The solution is this crown. If you come in and say, hey, I got this beautiful shiny piece of porcelain that would make this tooth look fantastic, like, well, I don't have a problem here. I got a broken tooth. That's a problem. You have to establish the whole need for sleep apnea, what the effects are of sleep apnea, what this is doing to your life expectancy. And we say this over and over again. The average expected life for a treated sleep apnea patient versus a non-treated sleep apnea patient is 8 extra years. It's a staggering thing. I mean, imagine you go out into the world, you can go into a store and on the shelf is, hey, 8 years of life. What are you paying for this? I'll empty whatever I got. I can cash that chip in. So this is a massive thing that you're going directly to the issues that the patient may or may not know they have, and then fostering this idea of, hey, if you're experiencing this might be causing these problems, which are so much more serious. Let's get them in and bought in on the idea. And then the treatment's just going to be, well, this is how we treat it.
Yeah. Well, that conversation can be pretty time consuming. There's a lot to explain with the science of airway. And I think there's a lot of rabbit holes for doctors who, naturally get excited by this stuff, can really overload patients with too much information. And that can also be a hindrance to them converting. So I think there's a very specific way that we need to be educating patients about how dangerous this airway problem really is and how urgent it is, and help them understand what the path to the lifestyle that they're looking for, what that looks like. And for us, what we've done is we've created a certain type of campaign that is at its core really storytelling. And these are the types of stories that our doctors tell every single day in their practice. It's a story about a patient who is struggling with symptoms, and they found their way to the practice, and the doctor helps them understand and connect the dots that those symptoms are related to an airway problem. And he's, as the dentist, the expert in the airway and the mouth and all that, he has the ability, or she has the ability, to propose a solution that can solve the problem. And that patient accepted the problem, and now they're getting the results that the patient is looking for. So that story of a patient just like them, who's struggling with the same symptoms just like them, and they had a solution. We don't even have to even get into the details of the solution. We don't have to say that's an oral appliance, or whether it's dentistry, or however you're solving it. Just that there is a solution, and that solution is found in the dental office. The next step becomes very apparent to the patient, who is vicariously putting themselves in the shoes of that character of the patient story. They know they need to book a consultation and come in and talk to you because they see these results. And so the storytelling is an efficient way to help the patient connect the dots, go from problem aware to now solution aware. And now they have a trusted advisor that can help them understand how to implement that solution. And that's you.
So I love this idea. I'm a big fan of storytelling as part of marketing anyways. So tell me what this is typically like for somebody you're working with. Are you going to their particular situation and saying, hey, Tell me a story. Let me take the story and put it into play. Or are there stories that you guys have that say fit the situation, or is it a bit of both?
It's a bit of both. There's certain stories that we know work well as we are getting to know the airway marketplace. So one of the things that Driven does really well is we're a data driven company, as any digital marketing company should be, and we've been analyzing keywords and search queries and online consumer behavior, really watching to see which symptoms kind of end up driving the patients, sooner rather than later. And what we've identified is there's different segments of patients, and I would say that there are your bullseye patient is the patient that is already diagnosed with sleep apnea. They're currently trying to use a CPAP machine and they hate it and they're just not compliant, but they also understand how important it is to solve this issue, but they need an alternative. So your bullseye patients, these are the ones that are going to convert as fast as possible because they already have what they need from their medical doctor. They already understand a diagnosis and they're open to an alternative solution. They're actually looking for oral appliances because they think they're going to be more compliant and more comfortable than their CPAP machine. That's our bullseye. We usually start there because they're easiest to convert. Then we go from there to sleep apnea patients. These are patients that have maybe talked to a medical doctor already. They know that they have a diagnosis of sleep apnea, but they're not excited about being tied to a machine every night when they sleep. And so they're already looking for something else. They know, I don't want that CPAP. I need something else, but they haven't necessarily started on treatment yet. So they're at various stages of really understanding what sleep apnea means and its impact on their life. But those convert really well. Also, a lot of times they've already been to the doctor, had the sleep study and things. And so they're a little farther along in the process. Expand out on our bullseye. Now, these are patients who maybe don't have a diagnosis, but they're very clear about the symptoms. They know this is a sleep related issue. They're snoring. They can't, they have insomnia. They have daytime fatigue symptoms. They have the brain fog. They've got TMJ issues, all of these different related symptoms. They haven't necessarily connected the dots to sleep, but they are exploring, trying to figure out it's a mystery to them. They're trying to find the answer. That's where a lot of our stories really help streamline that patient segment and get them into the practice a lot sooner. And then you have those, I would say, the farthest out on the bullseye are those patients that are really struggling with maybe systemic issues or the ADHD thing, and it's a far reach for them to connect the dots to airway. And so those are different types of stories. But you can see there's different patient segments. The way that we approach this is we've got a story for each one of those segments. Essentially, they're all the same, but we
Right.
use your stories, doctors. There's stories of patients that have come in that fit those profiles, and we have you share those stories with us in a Zoom call, just like this. And there are stories you probably know backwards and forwards because you're already telling them to your existing patients and your team members in your communities. We record those stories on the Zoom call. It's transcribed, and then we have professional writers turn them into what we call advertorials, which basically take that core patient story, and then we drop in some of the science and some of the justification for why this is an urgent problem, why they need to come in right now. We build some authority content, drop your credibility about your training and your experience and the technology that you use and your general expertise and why you're the person to solve this problem. So they like you, they trust you, and they know that you're the person to come to. And then at the end, after we've told the story of all the great results that this patient has gotten, we invite the reader to take an assessment and start the journey in your practice. And so they come in as a lead, having filled out a detailed survey and having consumed this content that has really helped them already connect the dots that it's an airway issue, that you're the doctor or the dentist that is the person that can help them, and that you have all the skills and credibility and a solution that can be right for them. And all they need to do next is have a conversation. Now, that's a great place to start. And the leads that come in from this campaign are absolutely not low quality. They're serious, they're educated, and they already have a sense of who you are and what you can do for them.
Right, amazing. And so think about this, guys. This is not a simple, hey, I may have a sleep issue. I'm filling out a sleep screener lead. This is a lead that has been primed, that's heard multiple touches before they're finally getting to the point of reaching out, which makes this lead somebody it's going to be way easier to convert than somebody who say went on to Google and said, "Hey, I snore. What should I do?" Yeah, it's fascinating. As you bring this up, so many things always come into my mind. It's fascinating to me the amount of people that look to Google when their problems are there rather than, hey, should I be calling a doctor about this? Do I think about calling a doctor because I'm exhausted? And the answer is they don't. There is this massive population of people out there. We know the numbers are at least 90% of the people that have sleep apnea that are just not diagnosed. This has been the same since I got into the sleep world in the 90s, and will continue to be the same until we actually all get together to make a difference out here and make this happen. But this is what creates this opportunity, which I love. So we're getting quality leads here. Tell me, where are you finding the best source to go ahead and, hey, we have this content, we're putting this content out. Here's where we're finding this message best reaches the whoever our prospect may be.
I would say that there's no one channel that is going to give you optimal results. Instead, you want to be everywhere because patients search everywhere for answers. They're going to be on Google searching. They're going to be on YouTube looking for answers. They're going to be in the different, forums and on blogs and things like that trying to find answers. And they're definitely on social media. Not necessarily searching for things on those platforms like Instagram and Facebook, but if the right message pops up and they've been searching on other channels, that message is going to get their attention because it's like, hey, I was just searching for that. It's interesting that this showed up in my newsfeed. And so we can use that search behavior as a signal to us to target users based off of their online behavior. If they've typed in certain keywords, if they visited certain websites, these are signals that we can use in our targeting strategies to put content in front of them. And as long as we have content that is multi-channel, so we've got a video on YouTube, we've got Google display ads that show up on those blogs that are related to the symptoms that they're trying to discover for themselves. It'll show up on places like Health Grades or vitals.com, or these are places where patients can educate themselves about their symptoms. And there's content showing up in their newsfeed on Instagram, on Facebook, and LinkedIn even. These are all channels where they can discover your content. And as long as this story, which is what hooks them in, that catches their attention, and then they're going to go through this journey and educate themselves, and they're going to be ready to talk to you at the end of that. So we're putting the content on the channels where patients are actively searching, positioning you as the authority, and we're getting them by joining the conversation that's already in their head. They're trying to solve these symptom problems, and your content helps them do that.
Awesome. And so I want to jump into a couple of the pieces that you and I have touched on here that I want to make sure that we cover here. And listen, you guys have an amazing portal. You guys have an amazing portal that walks the patient through the process because, listen, sleep can be a pretty big black hole if you just say, hey, go figure it out. Go here, go there, go there. Tell us a bit about what your portal is and exactly what it's looking to capture on a per patient so we can take this patient from lead straight through to patient delivery.
Sure. And it might be helpful. Maybe we can include a link in some of the resources here on this
We're going to
video.
include links for
Yeah.
all of this, guys.
Yes.
You'll have the ability to contact Charles. He's been a pleasure to work with, and I wouldn't be bringing him here if he didn't have something good to bring to the table. So we certainly will.
For sure. So it basically what that portal looks like, it's an online platform. We're going to create a separate microsite for you and your practice that only talks about how you service these patients that are struggling with airway and sleep issues. The reason for doing that is your current website, if you're doing dentistry also, probably talks about all the other services that you deliver in your practice. Well, if a patient finds their way to your website there, they're going to have to click around and dig and things like that to try to find this content. Most likely that's not going to happen. We have typically about 7 seconds before somebody clicks away from our site if they don't find what they're looking for right away. So what we've done is we pull out all of the airway related stuff and create a separate online piece of real estate that only talks about that. And on this site, we're able to really tell a story about your expertise and all the patients that you've helped and your particular methodology in going about solving this problem for patients. And so there'll be, bio information that specifically talks about not necessarily your dentistry, but your airway specific dental training and really positions you as an authority. So this site builds trust and authority. The stories are there of the patients that you've helped. So the patient, the readers can go through that journey, and then they're going to take an assessment. And that's what Dr. Avi is talking about here is that assessment is the first step to the patient really kind of just getting a sense of for themselves, how serious is this problem and what do I need to do next? We guide them through the typical sleep apnea questions so they can, do that self-diagnosis. We ask them if they've already done a sleep study. Have they gone to a doctor, got a diagnosis? Are they currently using a CPAP? So that's all basic information. Then we go a little bit further. We start asking about, well, are you taking any, medications for, systemic issues? Have you been diagnosed with any other systemic issues? That gives us the ability to take the symptoms and map them to their medical, root cause or condition. That gives you a lot of the foundation that you need when it comes to medical billing. And it also gives you a lot of info to start when you reach out to the patients. You can start asking questions over the phone. So this whole survey is online. It's a very easy survey for them to fill out. Once that gets completed, it goes into a CRM that we give our clients access to. The clients get an immediate email alert or a text message alert if you want that a new lead is in there. And then you have the ability to contact the patient through our CRM. You can call, you can email, you can send a text message all through the same platform. All the conversations are in one place. So you can make great notes and you reach out to the patient and you have a conversation and determine what the next step is. For most practices, that next step is bringing them into the office for a consultation. Some practices decide to go virtual and they can set up a virtual consult and really have a really meaningful conversation over a platform like this or anything that's set up for virtual consults. But basically, you find out where the patient's at and then you determine where they go next. If they're going to come in, or you can even send them to the medical doctor if that's the next step, and really start the process. So it starts the conversation in a meaningful way so that you can really decide how to triage these patients and do it in an efficient way so you're not wasting a bunch of your time chasing leads that are unresponsive.
Wonderful. And the good part, obviously, with this group, hey, they got it. They understand it. They already know the steps in terms of the patient coming in, where they need to go, what they need to do. All this information will be super helpful. The more information you have at the beginning, the easier it is to just guide this patient along the way and probably cut out steps. If you think about sleep, it certainly is more complex. Like imagine a patient comes in for full implants, right? Here's what I always say about it. So a patient comes in and needs 28 implants as an option. We're giving them a couple options. If they say yes, it's go to work time, right? Hey, I don't need somebody else in this equation. The idea or knowing and understanding this and getting all this information ahead of time, because there's so many steps in sleep, will just get you right to the chase. It's like, hey, let's get this person here because we need to go there. Now let's track them and make sure we're moving them along the process, which is beautiful.
Can I add something about it's so critical that we had a CRM
Mhm.
because there's a fatal flaw with a lot of the patient management systems in that the patient actually has to show up in your practice and be a patient of record before you can really get them in your system and have a place to store all their information and manage the conversations and really know what to do next. If they're not a patient, what do you do? How do you keep track? Well, practices end up creating their own systems. A lot of times they're super manual. You print out leads and put them in a folder, and then you got to dig through a stack of papers trying to keep up with everybody. Maybe you're trying to do some type of makeshift
Yeah, we use this
spreadsheet.
system over here.
Yes, and people look, it looks like that. Well, it's so easy for patients to slip through the cracks. So we absolutely recognize the need to have some type of automated system where you can have these conversations with patients before they come into your practice, keep all the conversations in one place and be able to understand, well, where did I leave off with this patient? Did they go to the sleep doctor? Have they had their test yet? All this stuff is happening before they become a patient of record in your office. You need to have a system in place so that people don't get slipped through the cracks. So that our system we've designed specifically to manage this process. And whenever you're ready, you can easily just export the information out of the CRM and be able to import it into your practice management system. And so it's basically a very easy process. It increases your conversion rate exponentially because you're able to follow up with patients and keep them accountable for taking the next step versus just waiting for them to decide when they're going to come in.
It's such a huge point here, everyone. Now you know this, right? A typical follow-up, and this is for the best of you. A typical follow-up is a phone call or so. So the ability to know where your patient's at all the time is very very important and should certainly increase case acceptance. All right, so let's get down to the crux of this. Hey, we want people to be looking towards the Driven Dental Airway program to help drive leads in. What can people expect in terms of leads? Give us, the real truth in terms of, hey, this is what it takes as far as commitments and timing, and this is what we've seen as far as success with leads coming in over time.
For sure. So this is it's a commitment. Any marketing campaign for a complex treatment like this, it's going to take some time to really get dialed in before we start to see a strong return on investment. There's just so many parts and pieces and things like that that need to get in place that go beyond just simple lead generation. We got to make sure we know how to contact the leads, get them in. The whole team is understanding about the processes. We got to be able to present treatment, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a long journey there. You need to make sure you have realistic expectations about how long that takes. Typically, we see anywhere from 3 to 4 months of really working this program before practices start to consistently see, the big results. However, they do get some results very early, because we're able to generate leads. If we're starting with that bullseye patient, you're going to find patients that, they're motivated to get off that CPAP machine and they want to come in right away. So because we know kind of the levels of urgency with the leads, we're able to generate some success typically pretty early. But I just want to make sure that everyone understands that this is a long-term play, and the real results start coming 3 to 4 months afterwards. In terms of the number of conversations that we can generate for you, you're going to see anywhere from, I would say, 30 to 60 new patient inquiries every single month in a 30-day period. And these would be inquiries of patients, reaching out, starting conversations via chat, calling into your practice, and filling out these surveys, these really detailed surveys for us to then, follow up with them. So all of those count as new patient inquiries. Typical conversion rate is going to depend on the practice's effort and how they use our CRM and follow up. Obviously, you got to answer the phone. It
Your
helps to be
verbiage,
able
guys.
to,
Verbiage.
yes, you got to know your verbiage. Now, we've got some great best practices that we've learned from, dealing with our implant patients. And as we start to work with more and more airway focused doctors, we're learning from the best of them. And we share all of these best practices. So it's like we're this community all working on this problem together to help patients who are struggling with this, really figure out what they need to do next and share the best practices there. So we'll be able to coach you or share resources so you can get your verbiage down, your lead flow, workflow, or lead follow-up workflow, how to, set up your practices. And I'm sure, Avi, your group, you have all kind of systems in place already for how you need to talk to them once they get into
Yeah.
the practice. So they got all that set up already. So that's the timeline, but basically you plug in this marketing campaign. So you increase the number of conversations you're having with patients who are actively searching to solve their airway problems. They're coming in motivated to hear your treatment plans. It's just going to give you a much higher general conversion rate, and you're not going to have to work so hard to convince people that this is something that's important to solve for them. They're coming in desperate for a solution, and they can't wait to hear yours.
So by the way, again, I love the fact that you guys have been around for a few years and just get this already. I mean, it's almost the first thing I say when we start lecturing to anybody new. If you're getting involved in the world of sleep, prepare to make nothing for 4 months. You're just not going to. It takes time. Even the best of the best. Hey, you got to bring in a patient. You got to have them see a doctor. They got to get a home sleep test if they haven't had one yet. If they do, now you have to have that sleep test read, diagnosed. You got to go over results. And then if this is being done through medical insurance, your payments are 6 to 8 weeks behind. So it's like, hey, this is going to take some time. But like with everything else in sleep, you're making an investment in this as a long-term thing. This is not a short-term game. Sleep is not a short-term game. It's a long-term investment, which, by the way, pays off so much more than other things because once it's built, it just keeps going. So get involved with this, understand what's going to happen at the beginning, and know that just like everything else, you put in the time and effort on this, and this pays off tremendously, as those of you who are already in our sleep world know. Fantastic.
Yeah.
What
Wait,
am I
you
missing here,
asked about
Charles?
results, Avi, which was, depending on what your solution is, the results can be phenomenal. All the doctors have, you know, different solutions. Some have a certain oral appliance that they want to present. Some solve the problem with, with dentistry that focuses on, occlusion and maybe, some myofunctional therapy and things like that to change the way patients, their muscles and how they hold their mouth. Those things can be habits. Some doctors use laser therapy. There's a lot of different ways to solve the problem of airway. Whatever your solution is, this campaign is set up so you can drop that in here and really, make a case for that. So it's not like we're tied to any particular type of solution. You get to bring that. And I would say it's also so important to choose a marketing partner to help you build this authority in the marketplace and attract these patient conversations. Choose a marketing partner that understands the airway marketplace and understands what needs to happen once that lead is generated. If you go with, there's a bunch of companies out there that say, oh, we'll get you leads from Facebook or we'll get you leads from any of these marketing channels. They're digital marketers only, but they're missing all of the clinical knowledge and things that go on in dental practice. But the two can't work independently. Your marketing is creating promises that are delivered on once that patient ends up in your practice. So your marketing has to have an intimate understanding of what happens next. It's setting expectations. It's pre-addressing potential objections that you're going to be seeing in the office. If you get your marketing right, it makes everything else easier. So they've got to work together. And so that's why I think Driven is uniquely poised to be a successful marketing partner for the entire dental industry, because we know airway dentistry. We know these patients. We know what goes on inside of a dental practice, and the marketing can set you up so that all those things happen a lot easier with less stress.
Yeah, and I'll give you a bonus one on top of it. So the way our members really go about things, they're also going out to the medical world in a pretty aggressive manner, where they're going out and trying to establish themselves. And part of what makes them grow over time is their online presence.
Yeah,
And the more their company gets built out, all of a sudden these doctors, they're hearing the same message, or their patients are even bringing up the same message to them. Hey, have you heard of Dr. So and so and their solution, or this sleep company and their solution? It just starts to create your awareness. So now doctors, the very ones that have the patients that you want, have now heard of you because you've made an effort to get yourself out there online, which is
100%. And some of these doctors can be resistant to the airway solutions. Not every
like some,
doctor
I
is
mean,
so
most, yeah,
enthusiastic.
I know.
Yes. And so, but imagine how the conversation can be different if, they're just getting to know you and they Google you online and they see, oh, there's an airway website. You've got, a YouTube presence. There's Facebook content. Your LinkedIn profile is full of these amazing patient stories, and it's educating the marketplace and showing the results that you're getting for patients. Well, your medical partners now are going to have much more trust to send their patients to you because you're the person that can help solve these issues. And I think, like you said at the beginning of this call, they probably heard from other doctors in the area, but this can help you stand out and be the one that they trust to actually send the referrals and do that consistently. So your online presence and the just database of all these stories that we can help you collect and tell, that's going to give you credibility beyond just with patients, but also with your medical partners and the community at large.
No doubt. And this is such a big thing. This is the overall scope here, guys. You're looking at every little piece of this. Every little piece builds up who you are in the sleep world. If you have a way of doing things, you're missing out on the other 10 ways that help build you up. This is a part of your strategy that if it's not there, it's going to hold the rest of it back. So certainly get out there. Tell me this. So we haven't dove into, you and I haven't dove into the idea of ad spend, what people are looking at ad spend. And hey, let's say somebody's got a bigger budget. Does more ad spend going to lead to more leads, and we're able to look at it that way?
Yeah, I would say generally that's the rule. In a lot of marketplaces, I mean, there's only so many patients that are actively searching. I think your bullseye patients might be limited in a particular marketplace, but you can certainly start to create more content that's going to go after those people that haven't quite connected the dots. So it's not a one-to-one spend more money, get more leads.
Right.
It's you're going to depending on your marketplace, there's a certain amount of leads you can get to, and it's going to be more and more expensive to try to push that anymore. So we like to find a sweet spot where it's also about how much can we handle in the practice.
Mhm.
Sometimes, the budgets just overwhelm us with leads, and we don't have enough to really adequately follow up. So there's a balance between how many people we can talk to and move forward through the process and how many leads we generate. So I wouldn't say it's hard and fast rule to just spend more money, get more leads. You want enough leads to keep you busy and enough quality leads that you can convert. And so it's about quality also, not just quantity.
And how often are you looking at this with the practice and saying, okay, hey, here's what we got as far as leads now. Here's what we got for this month. Here's what we did in terms of where we focused. We perhaps should focus a little bit more here, a little bit less here. How often are you having that conversation with your clients?
So we have the conversation with our clients at least monthly. The data is always available inside of the CRM real time. They can see their conversion rates. It's so cool to actually be able to see every single conversation for every single patient in this database. And what we do is we kind of get in there and we look for trends of where there's opportunity to improve. Maybe it's how we're sending out our initial text messages, or what do we say on the phone. These little tweaks can really turn the same lead volume into more patients just by increasing your conversion rate. So, the marketing of in terms of, the ads that we're sending and how many leads we're generating, that's not always the solution. If you find you're not getting enough patients in the chair, a lot of times it can just be, well, how are we managing the leads that we have? If we can increase our conversion rate there, you're going to see more patients, and you're not necessarily going to have to increase your ad spend. You're actually just getting more out of what you're already spending. So
Well,
we definitely don't look at it like throwing money to solve this problem. There's always a way to look a little bit deeper.
okay, so let me ask you a
Yeah,
quick one on that,
yeah.
right? We talked way at the beginning about, hey, you got this initial burst of your patients. Have you found the conversion of your patients, talking to doctors, we found for your clients, the conversion of their patients are now higher because they're now in the CRM and they know where they're at with these patients, as opposed to, hey, maybe I mentioned airway, it gets buried in the dental notes and probably never went there.
Yes, they can add people to the CRM very easily. We're in the process now of developing nurturing campaigns. So all of these patient stories, that's part of it actually. As we create the stories, we email everybody that's already on the list that maybe hasn't come in yet with the new story. So maybe there's a story about sleep apnea. Maybe there's a story about ADHD. Maybe there's a story about someone struggling with TMJ issues. Maybe somebody has tinnitus. Every single time you've got a new story, it's another angle that might trigger someone in your existing patient base that says, hey, I'm struggling with that problem. I didn't know the doctor could help me with that. I didn't know those two things were related. I need to book a strategy or a consult with a doctor and come in. These are patients that already knew you. They just didn't know this was in your area of expertise. So these stories can help with your internal marketing and converting your internal patients as well. When they come in for their next cleaning appointment or whatever it is, they're going to raise their hand and say, hey, I saw that article that you just published about TMJ. I'm actually struggling with that. And, I'm interested to hear how you can help me. So the patients can start asking you versus you trying to poke and prod and initiate this conversation.
Which increases your existing patient acceptance exponentially. Have them come to you asking for it rather than, hey, guess what? I know you're here for a cleaning, but we have this issue, which is obviously something that dentists have struggled with over time. Wonderful stuff. So we're coming up near the end here. Charles, what's the next step for IAOS members or anybody watching this video that now wants to get in touch with you and have a conversation about Driven Dental's airway program and how it can help them?
Well, just like with your patients, the next step is a conversation. You can go to our website, drivendentalmarketing.com. There'll be a link there to book a strategy call. Just
We'll put a link right there.
yeah, you'll find a link here in the resources somewhere. So click the link, fill out the form. You'll get on my schedule, and you and I will have a one-on-one conversation. We'll talk about your practice, your solution, your processes, your challenges, and I'll open up. You can pick my brain, and we'll share with you all the things that are working. We'll tell you how Driven specifically can help you build this online presence that's going to attract these patients for you. I can share with you how we'll work together to coach you and your team to convert those leads and plug you into all the resources that we can help you with to really close on the back end. So it's a full package. You'll get all the details when you talk to me, including pricing, of course, and then you can make a decision for yourself if it's right for you. What I will guarantee is it's going to be worth your time. Just if you're serious about building your airway practice, come talk to me. you'll walk away from that conversation with a lot more clarity about what you need to do next to accelerate that portion of growth in your practice.
So one good thing I could tell you, hey, if there's an IAOS person who's watching this, they're serious. They've already invested big time in themselves, their sleep business, which by the way is always a separate piece for our members. It's a separate business from their dental practice. So it's already got some of the pieces that you're looking for. Hopefully we can make it just that much better. I can tell you guys, if this conversation wasn't worth it, I wouldn't be having it with Charles, nor would I have brought it to you. So I can wholeheartedly say every single one of you should literally be scheduling a consultation with Charles. There's no reason for you not to, because it's not like there's anything to this other than, hey, here's what I think we can do for you. If it works for you, wonderful, and it will work for you if you go for it. And if it doesn't work for you, well, you just had a good conversation that certainly was a boost to your overall things, and you probably got a couple tips that are going to help you anyways. Awesome. Charles, anything else you want to share before we wrap up this this amazing webinar?
Just that I'm excited to be part of this. One of the things that is of value for Driven is that we are driven for impact. We want to impact the lives of patients, impact the lives of our doctors in terms of their ability to, financially grow their practice and make a difference, and also do the dentistry that they love. And it's so great to be in this area of dentistry. I also am really proud of the fact that I believe that we are elevating dentistry in general to be where it really needs to be in terms of the pantheon of medical providers. The dentist can really be the quarterback for a lot of patients in terms of who do they need to see to really manage their health. And I think that's where they should be. There's so much that dentists can do for patients. I'm excited to share this message with the marketplace, help you all build your own visibility and be part of this as well. I think this is a movement that is much bigger than any individual doctor. This is about helping just healthcare in general elevate to a new level. And I feel like we're making a significant impact there. So just happy to be part of it all. I'm excited to talk to you guys. Thank you, Avi, for having me. This has been really fun.
It is my pleasure, as always. You guys will get to see Charles. He'll pop in at some of our events. He likes to hang and party with everyone. So come on in. You'll see him at our events. And way in advance, we are going to actually be part of one of Charles's company's events. Is it next July? Next July. So not this July, next July, July of 2022. We're going to be part of one of their events, and just looking forward to some amazing synergy as time goes along. Click on that link, guys. Set up your spot with Charles. It'll well be worth your time. And Charles, you are the man. I appreciate you coming on, and look forward to lots of fun in the future.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, guys. Click on that link. Let's get it going, and I'll speak to you soon.